Right, hello everyone. So this is I'm going to do some videos about building small kind of layouts, like micro layouts. Some of them I'm not going to add scenery to, and some of them are for just running and testing, and also trying out things. So some of them I will try out, maybe some scenic ideas. And the good thing about them is you can try small areas and see what works, or practice stuff before you make a mess of your bigger layout. So this is my Christmas loop, and it's 3 by 4 feet, and it's quite a small radius, smaller than first because it's flexi track. So I wanted to see how small I could go. It works, it's pretty good, but the second one I built for a friend of mine is much better because I made mistakes and learnt my lessons on this one, and then when I made the next one it runs a lot better. Now this one runs okay for the Christmas train set, but it's not that brilliant. But it's also, with limited space, it's a big board. I'm not going to do anything else with it, and I also don't need a dedicated board because I've got some small enough radius track I can use, that Pico track or some of that Roco track, that with the road bed, that will just, if it's only going to be on the desk for a couple of weeks at Christmas once a year, that can be used for the Christmas layout instead. So it means I can do something else with this board. So I'm going to lift the track, and then I think I'm going to cut it in half. And I've got a load of other boards I bought from B&Q when they closed, not B&Q, sorry, Homebase closed down in where I live, and I bought a few bits of plywood sheet before, massively discounted when they were getting rid of everything. So I've got some more, but I think they're 4x2s. So for N gauge micro layouts I only need much smaller boards. So I did buy this, which is a saw, and it's got a laser on it. It's a little mini circular saw, so I'm hoping I can cut my boards up into the smaller micro layout sizes that I require. The one thing I did buy for the layout is I've got a couple of these Y points from Pico Streamline, and they are the Unifrog ones, which I've never had before. So on my main DCC layout I've got Hornby and Pico Insel Frog points, and I'm seriously considering, before I wire up the point motors, in just replacing them all with Unifrog points. But to be honest, the cost of that, it might be cheaper just to fit capacitors as stay alive in the locomotives instead. So I probably won't do that. But what I do want to do is I want to try these. I want to see what they're like. So what I want is to cut this board lengthwise, and then just have a couple of these points, one facing that way, one there facing that way. Then I'll have 2 lines in and 2 sidings, and then this half of the board can go up there, and just have a couple of tracks on it. Maybe I could put some more things on it, doesn't really matter. And that can also double as a programming track if I want to. And then I may have it so that I can put the 2 halves on top of one another and build it into like a case, put a handle on it. We'll see. And then it can be stored away, and I can get it out whenever I want to test any locomotives that I'm fixing. I know it helps to have a loop sometimes to run things in, but I've got the clip together loop for that, so I don't really need this as well. And if you want to play around doing shunting and things, it's much better to have your points fixed down on a board and also wired up, because that's, you can switch them remotely. That's a lot more fun. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this in half and lift the track, cut this in half that way, and I'm going to build a micro layout with an extension and potentially make it into a storage case for it as well. Reuse as much of this material as possible, and we'll see how we go with that one. So this is I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. It's just going to be tentatively named 00HO test track. But I'm going to be, I've got another few micro layout projects in N and TT that I'm going to be doing as autumn comes in and the nights draw in. So I'll probably, post some updates on those projects as and when as well. But this one's kicking off today, so I'm going to go out in the garden now, and well, I'm going to lift this track, then I'm going to go out and see what this is like, see how easy that is to use, whether I can get a nice clean cut. Because I did have a jigsaw, but I've had it for like 30 years now, and I couldn't get it. I just can't get the blade to stay straight. I just couldn't cut. It was, all the cuts were zigzaggy. So I bought this, and obviously I've got a lot of board I can make. I mean, for N gauge, especially if you're doing Tomix or Kato, you can make tiny little loops, and I can sort of fit almost what I want into a flight case, but you don't quite get enough dimension in one way, or it's too deep or something like that. So I think you could just make effectively like a flight case just using this. Maybe you don't need this 25 square. You can probably use some other material, like, I don't know, 25 or even 15 by 5 or something like that. I've got some of that knocking about. So yeah, I think I'm going to be building stuff, and then they can all be closed up and stored in quite a small space, and then I can pull them out, stick them on here to play with them, and use them. So I think that's going to be fun. Obviously, it's going to take a while to build them all, but this one I should have something running this week, next week. So yeah, today really I want to maybe do another couple of. I've got a couple of videos to do in my train set review series, Hands Up. So coming up is going to be a Spanish N-gauge Iber train set. I've got a early Triang good set that I want to review, and then I want to do a comparison between the Hornby 00 3-rail, Hornby 00 2-rail, the Playcraft, and the Triang basic good sets. I'm going to see if I can find out what the retail prices were of each of them as well, so I can bring that into the comparison. So there's that, and I've just been looking at one of my Clockwork Hornbys that I was going to maybe set one up outside and run one today as well if I get time. We'll see how long it takes me to cut this board up. But yeah, so there's a few things coming up, but hopefully this will be the first one in a series of building whatever this turns out to be. It's going to be a test track with live frog points, which are going to be switchable from a control panel. It's probably not going to have a built-in controller, even though I do have ones I could use, because I want to just be able to plug in either DC-C or DC. And I think that will be useful. But we'll see. I haven't decided yet, because all these things can be decided as I go along. So essentially what I want to end up with is something that's half this size that I can just slap on here to quickly test locos and see how they perform over points, see how well they can shunt back and forth, that kind of thing. Then because I was going to do a video comparing all my shunters, and I've got some track which is that Pico stuff, but the points with that are about twice the length of that, and they're not isolating either. They're a slightly different way they work. So rather than isolating, and also they have the direction rails. If you come over it, it just you can't derail. It just comes over it and it just leaves it in whatever position the last train came over. So they're kind of useful for a different kind of situation, whereas if you want to just do a bit of shunting and put stuff in sidings, they're a bit too long, and these are going to be better. So, and also they're not live frog either. So in the end I decided to build something, which is why I'm doing this. So we'll see how it turns out. No lager yet today because I'm going to be using the saw. So maybe later tonight I'll do a bit more filming and show if I've still got both my hands by the time I've used this. I'll do a video later on and perhaps do an update, and we'll see how it goes. Right, welcome back. So I've been outside and I've dismantled my lifted the track. You can see we've got some usable flexi track pieces. There's a piece of third radius curve there. All this can go back in the box. So the plan is to have Y point here and one facing that way, and then we'll have a siding up there, siding down there, track coming in, and another track going off here, which will probably go off the board, and then I'll have two tracks. And then later on, what I can do is I can put this board, this side of it, to extend it the length. Then I've got a nice little test track. So originally I thought, well, I'll just put two lines on here, just two. This is about the length of flexi track, so you can just have a length of this and just stick it on there. Maybe have two, then I could have this as my programming track as well, which would be quite useful. I could just get this board out, plug the programming stuff into here and program stuff on a nice long, so that could be useful. But I'm not going to make any decisions yet about this board. You can see I've got a load of screws and things. I've got an old pair of rubbishy old Hornby points, really old ones. Got my fish plates and my wiring, so all that will get reused. So on this second board, it's difficult to know. I mean, I might just keep it simple and just have two lengths of flexi track, which can then go on to the other half. Or I could do something a bit crazy. I could have some kind of run around on here, but it will be with normal points, and it will be, not unifrog, not live frog points. So whether that will cause me more annoyance than do good, I don't know. I think, and sometimes just having a piece of track like this with no point work, I can then, when I want to test older locos with coarse scale wheels, they will run on this code 100, but they don't like modern point work. So I think what I'm lacking is, I was going to build, I might even put, the other option I've got is to put a piece of Super 4 track, just that doesn't connect to anything, on there as a test track for the Triang stuff that I repair. But it usually runs okay on here, so if there's no point work, because on my shelf layout, when I was doing it analog with no points in it, all the older Triang stuff run okay. As soon as I put the points on, that was it wouldn't run, and it was shorting out stuff as well. So, and obviously I went DC in the end, so it didn't matter. But I was going to have a DC only layout, which was a DC only line, which was not connected at all. But I just, in the end, I thought I want to be able, all lines to be able to get to all lines on a DCC layout. So one of the reasons I'm building this is because I've got some track that I can run, so there'll be plenty of space on here. So I probably will just have two lines of this, and then I might just put a Super 4 straight, so I've got something to test. I mean, my other thing I was going to do was have a line of 3 rail as well. So I might squeeze one of those in as a straight of Hornby 3 rail. So this track will be one part of the test track, and we'll have two long lines that can extend where to this layout, but also a 3 rail at the back and maybe a Super 4 at the front as well. So I've got each type of track that I can just pull this out, connect it up and test any locomotive without having to get, you know, the get all the bits out and build a track on here. I'll just have something on a board under the desk I can just pull out. So maybe that's what I'll do with this half. So we'll see. We've got all these bits of wood over. There's enough here to do it. I don't think with this test track it's quite heavy, and I think it's going to be better to keep the base as it is and just have it, and I'll just store it. I'm not going to make it into any kind of box, but I think for the N gauge version I think I will use thinner board and smaller you know, struts, and I think I can construct it and then build something of a box around that, maybe just with some you know, if this is only going to be, I think this is 12, I think if I use 6mm and then sort of 6mm battens, build it with plenty of strutting, it's not going to be that big a board, and then I could use, you know, 20 by 5 and just put it round it and build a box round it for the N gauge one. But I've just feeling the weight of this and the gauge of this tray, I think it's, if I'm not putting scenics on it, I think it's going to be solid enough to be able to be stored leaning against a wall or under the desk or whatever, and it won't need to be in it won't need have a lid on it or anything. But I am going to build, I am, for the N gauge, I think I am going to build something where I can put it inside and close it up and, you know, protect it, and that way if I want to add scenery even at a low, you know, up to say a few centimetres, I can do that, and it won't get damaged when it's just, you know, knocking about in the workshop. So that's the plan, and it's a lovely day, so I'm going to go outside and film some train sets outside, I think, for some of my hands up videos. So I'll see you in the next one of these or in one of those.